And given the current state of the White House and the country, it might feel to some a bit like 1974. All week, we've been discussing Joe's new book, Saving Freedom, Truman, the Cold War, and the Fight for Western Civilization. And joining us now, author and NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. Pulitzer Prize-winning author and presidential historian Doris Kearns Goodwin, and former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright joins us this morning. What an honor to have such an incredible panel and Secretary Albright with us this morning.
It is so great. And Secretary Albright, I just wanted to get your thoughts as I heard Tony Blinken yesterday talking about his stepfather escaping the Holocaust and falling to his knees in front of an American tank, an African-American soldier coming out of it, and Tony's stepdad saying, "God bless America," the only three words he knew. And I thought about you and your family escaping Hitler's grasp. I thought about Dr. Brzezinski. I thought about Mrs. Brzezinski. I know it would have been such a moving moment for your dear friend, Zabig. I'm curious what your thoughts were yesterday as you saw Tony repeat that remarkable story.
Well, I was deeply moved because Tony's story and his family's story is so remarkable, and it makes him appreciate even more the incredible job that he is about to step into. And my thoughts were how grateful I am to America because we came in November 1948, and Harry Truman was my first American president. And I also so remember being a little girl in London all during World War II. And when the Americans came, what a difference it was to see the Yanks walking through London and knowing what had happened in terms of America helping to save Europe from the horrors of fascism.
Could you talk about what this moment means to you, seeing America once again getting engaged on the world stage? When you were Secretary of State and throughout your entire life, you've been such a champion, just like Dr. Brzezinski was. You were such a champion for the promotion of American values across the globe and standing up to autocrats, standing up to tyrants, believing that America was the indispensable power. What does it mean for us to be back to where we have been since 1947?
I think it is so important, Joe and Mika, because we know what a difference it makes when America is not just present, but partners with other countries who have similar values in order to make the world a better place for all those people who want to live in freedom. And so it means an incredible amount to see that we are back, and that we are back with a team of people that truly understand what America's position in the world needs to be. We've been AWOL, and it's been terrible. And we need to restore our standing and our reputation and understanding what America means in terms of values and working with others. So I am very hopeful for this administration. They have a very difficult job ahead of them because the last 4 years have been a disaster, and it means rebuilding in a very different kind of situation. But I think they're a terrific team being led by President-elect Biden, whom I know very well and has a very much a disposed way of dealing with people as partners and listening and not bossing everybody around.
And Doris Kearns Goodwin, as we speak with hope about the incoming administration, it is so important to remind our viewers that the words that we heard yesterday could have come from the lips of a Secretary of State who worked for any Republican or Democratic administration between Harry Truman and Barack Obama. But you just look, one of the things that was so inspiring about Harry Truman's leadership in the Cold War is that he built an architecture, sort of this international construct that every president that followed him, through Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, they followed, and there was this seamless passing of the torch between one administration to another, between one group of diplomats to another group of diplomats who understood what America's role was in the world. And we are actually, it seems that we are once again reconnecting with that proud heritage.
You know, and it also seemed, Joe, that we're once again reconnecting with a team that's going to be strong-minded people who are willing to speak their mind, question assumptions, and argue. And that's what's so great about the Harry Truman team, as you portray in your book. Look at General Marshall. There's this great story when he was a young general. He was in FDR's office, and FDR's presenting some pet project, and everybody else is going along. And then FDR says to Marshall, you're not nodding your head. He said, well, I don't agree with you at all, Mr. President. And everybody thought, uh-oh, here's the end of his career. He lifts him up 25 notches to become the chief of staff. That's what he wanted. And I think that's what we saw in Biden's team yesterday. It's what we saw in Harry Truman's team. I just wanted to ask you, Joe, what fun it must have been to live with this man. I mean, I choose the people I want to write about because I want to live with them.
Right.
And Harry Truman is somebody, God, I love to live with him. I went to his house not long ago, and they told this great story. He'd come back from being president, and he was sitting reading. He was always reading. Who cares if he went to college, because he was always reading. And somebody knocks on the door who needs help. His car is broken down. He lets him in to use the phone, and then as the guy's leaving, he just stares at Harry's face, and he said, it's just amazing. You look like that SOB, Harry Truman. And so what does Truman say? I am that SOB, Harry Truman. That's what you need, that guy with his self-deprecating humor.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.